They'll suddenly change when you stop calling. The unspoken power of silence in human relationships. A some-minute deep psychological reflection on love, ignorance, and the energy shift when you pull back. They never expected you to stop calling, because for so long your voice was the echo that kept their world warm. You were consistent. You showed up, even when they didn't, even when they left your messages on read, or let your calls ring out like unanswered prayers. They thought you'd always be there, didn't they? There's something funny about human nature. It tends to underestimate what is easily available and romanticize what has become distant. You see, when you called them, maybe every morning or late at night when the world felt too heavy, they didn't always respond with the warmth you hoped for. Sometimes you were met with coldness, other times indifference, but you kept calling because love made you hopeful. Because your heart still believed that maybe they were just busy, distracted, stressed, unsure, or healing. You gave them the benefit of every doubt, even at the cost of doubting yourself. Until one day, you stopped calling. The power shift that no one talks about. The moment you stop calling isn't just a change in behavior. It's a shift in emotional energy. It's an invisible withdrawal that whispers louder than any words could ever scream. People don't always notice your presence while you're offering it, but the silence you leave behind, that silence becomes deafening. That silence starts asking the questions they never thought to consider. Why haven't they called today? Did I do something wrong? Have they stopped caring? You see, they were comfortable in your love. It gave them a cushion to fall on, a warmth to lean into. Even when they acted like they didn't care, a part of them always knew you'd return. But now your silence begins to echo, and something inside them shifts. Suddenly they begin to change. Not because they've become a better person overnight, not because they've found some newfound wisdom, but because they've felt the absence of your energy, because the space you left behind is starting to feel too loud. When you called, you were holding the bridge together. What they didn't realize is that every call, every message, every effort you made, it was glue. It was you building and maintaining the emotional bridge between two hearts. Even when they didn't walk toward you, you kept laying bricks, kept painting signs that said, "I'm still here." But when you stopped calling, the bridge began to crumble, and they finally saw it wasn't mutual effort holding things together. It was you. All along it was you. Their sudden change isn't always love. It's realization. Here's a truth no one tells you. When people start chasing you after you stop calling, it's not always because they've suddenly fallen in love. Sometimes it's because they're realizing how deeply they relied on your affection, your presence, your loyalty. Sometimes it's ego. Sometimes it's loss. Sometimes it's guilt. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's the delayed awakening of a love they never nurtured while it was alive. But you've already begun to heal. When you stop calling, you reclaim your power. You're no longer reaching out to convince someone of your worth. You're no longer waiting on replies that never come. You're no longer begging for attention, love, or consistency. When you stop calling, you stop living in hope and start living in truth. The truth that if someone wanted to talk to you, they would. The truth that love should never be one-sided. The truth that someone who values you never lets you feel unseen. Your silence becomes a sacred declaration. I will no longer water a garden that won't grow with me. And in that silence, you start to bloom. Why do they change after you let go? Because before, you were filling a void for them, one they never had to acknowledge. You were the emotional anchor. You were the giver. And they got used to receiving. But when you stop calling, you give them space to feel the void you once filled. And that void, it haunts them. They start remembering things they once ignored. The sound of your voice, the way you cared even when they were cold, the safety of knowing someone out there never gave up on them. Now, without your calls, they're left with their own silence. And it's not as comforting as yours. You don't have to return when they suddenly change. Let's get real. They might text. They might call. They might even say all the right things. But remember, sudden change is easy when fear kicks in. The fear of losing you. The fear of guilt. The fear of being alone. But change that's built on fear doesn't last. True change? It's built on awareness, remorse, growth, and accountability. So ask yourself, are they calling because they miss you or because they miss your presence? Are they returning because they love you or because they hate feeling unloved? You deserve more than someone who loves you only when you're gone. When you stop calling, you invite real love in. Sometimes the person who finally notices you after you stop calling is the same person who took you for granted while you were calling. And sometimes letting them go opens the space for someone else. Someone who sees your value immediately. Someone who doesn't need your silence to recognize your worth. Because real love doesn't wait for absence to feel presence. It recognizes your heart in the now. It cherishes you in the little things. It doesn't need reminders or wake-up calls. So don't regret your silence. Honor it. Your silence is not weakness. It is the sound of boundaries being respected. It is the voice of your healed self whispering, I choose peace over potential. The final truth. They'll suddenly change when you stop calling. But that change isn't your responsibility to carry. It's not your duty to fix, respond to, or even believe in. Your growth began the moment you realized love isn't proven through persistence alone. It's proven through reciprocity. And silence is not rejection. It's redirection. So if they change when you stop calling, let them. But don't stop walking just because they've started chasing. Some people wake up when the storm has already passed. And some people only realize what you meant after you've already moved on. You don't need to answer. You don't need to return. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay silent and let your absence say everything your words never could. Hit that subscribe button and join us on a journey through the timeless wisdom of the older generation. Don't miss a single life-changing lesson.